welcome to the Virtual Stab Comedy Theater. It's time for 6 o'clock Dad Rock Talk. Please welcome to your screen 6 o'clock Dad Rock Talk.
Hey folks, welcome to the show. My name's Corey Behringer, joined as always by the number of the beast himself, Court Hansen, and our special guest this week, very funny man, Parker Newman. How you guys doing?
Good. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, we are thrilled to have you. So this week, you brought a playlist that you curated of a fantastic band. Yes, I'm talking to Parker here, folks. Parker is the guest. Court is not the guest. Parker brought the playlist, and the band he chose to bring to the table is not so much a dad rock band, but as Court has coined the term, more so uncle rock. I completely agree with this. This band is uncle rock to the max. We're not going to be talking about Iron Maiden this week. Parker, when did you first get into Iron Maiden, and what was it about them that blew your mind, just did whatever it did to you?
Well, Iron Maiden was the first actual metal band I got into. I was into, for a little bit, I was into punk and not metal at all. I was strictly punk, but then Iron Maiden helped me ease my, kind of the lube for metal,
Definitely.
for me.
I think they're that for a lot of people. How old would you say, were you when you got into Maiden?
I want to say probably like 14 or 15. I remember I was a freshman in I was in freshman summer school. So I think freshman going into sophomore year summer school, I remember listening to Iron Maiden like in summer school.
Iron Maiden is an excellent summer school band as well. Like if you're passing time just like doodling band names on notebooks in summer school, it's like
you're trying your best to draw Eddie. Totally.
Yeah, they have the hardest logo to draw.
Oh yeah, easily. They have a character.
Yeah.
No one else has as accessible of a character, I think. How about you, Court? When did you first become exposed to Iron Maiden?
So the very first time would have been probably 6th grade. I was sleeping over at my friend Will Galbely's house, and we were talking about skateboarding and the Tony Hawk soundtracks. And I believe that Number of the Beast was on Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3, but I'm not confident in that assumption. But it came up, is the point. We're talking about skateboarding and music and cool things like that. And he showed me Iron Maiden, whom I had not heard of before. I had heard of Iron Butterfly before. And
Very different band.
I thought that Iron Maiden was like a Jefferson Starship kind of extension of
that they became.
Iron Butter. Exactly, So I thought that it was like... So I was totally wrong for a very long time as like a young kid. But I did really like what he showed me, which was Number of the Beast. I liked the spoken word intro part with Vincent Price and all that stuff. It's really, really cool. And so I bought that song on iTunes with Coke or Sprite or whatever. They had the codes under the bottom. And that was one of the things I bought. And my parents were never very concerned about like the kind of music that I listened to. But there was a misunderstanding with the lyrics to Number of the Beast, where when he says 666, my mom thought he was saying sex, sex, sex.
And that was too far.
That was too far. Like worshiping demons is absolutely fine. My mom loves gargoyles too, which is great.
Nice.
But yeah, I just have that memory from like 2004. But it wasn't until years later, and like Parker, I came up more through like punk stuff. Metal was not really on my mind at all. I saw it as kind of corny or inaccessible to me. But as I got older, I got a little more into it. I had some friends started showing me like atmospheric black metal stuff, which I listened to occasionally, but didn't ever dive into too much. And then I saw, who was it? I got invited to see the band The Sword with Mike LaRosa and Nick Coleman and other people that we all mutually know that the audience might not necessarily. And that was the first.
Pet?
What's that?
Sorry, was that when they played with Opeth?
I'm not sure. This was at
They usually play Harlow's, don't they?
Yeah, it was at Harlow's.
Oh, okay, never mind.
But that was the first metal show I had ever been to. I had only ever been to like hardcore shows, and then in middle school like metalcore shows, but nothing that was like authentically metal in any sense. And even though the Sword isn't like the heaviest band or the most authentically metal, they were an introduction, and then the band I got into after that was Iron Maiden. It was like, okay, so the Sword has tapped into my brain, is stabbed into my brain a little bit, and then metal is starting to leak in, you get what I'm saying. Yeah. And then right after that, you were getting
heavy metal poisoned.
Exactly, I was getting bludgeoned with heavy metal, and the second strike came from Iron Maiden. After, or I guess that's the third strike. After some black metal, the Sword, and then Iron Maiden, and now I listen to all kinds of metal. But Iron Maiden is such a good entry point.
Oh, seriously? Yeah.
It's got like all the great things that would go on to be elaborated on in other genres of metal. Like you see elements of what would become death metal. You see like the technical guitar work that would get expanded on by future bands.
Yeah.
As well.
And purely from a performance point of view too, like they have, in my opinion, like the best balance of like an epicness hand in hand with a goofiness and a sense of humor.
Yeah, they're like the prototype for like power metal, which is a genre that I don't totally love, but there's some cool stuff there that just sounds like an even higher like fantasy version of what Iron Maiden sings about. It adds like a whole symphony orchestra sound to it. But yeah, they're just a great window into how many different places metal can go.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I first got into Iron Maiden just from watching a beat up old VHS of Live After Death, which is one of the best live concerts anyone could ever buy. Like it's seriously so good. Talk about goofy. I mean, the whole intro and everything. It's so perfect though. And and I was hooked. I probably saw that when I was like definitely too young. I was probably like 9 or so, and didn't like listen to albums until my little brother got into them. He got into Iron Maiden in a big way when he was in like the 5th and 6th grade. And I'm only like a year and a half older, but so they were just around. So I would pick them up because he would get another one every Christmas or so. And yeah, we can get into how wonderful the album art is and everything too, because that was really an entry point.
Me too,
in a big way of just like, what is this, you know?
And more or less, their songs are about the thing that's on the cover, which not every band delivers on.
Yes. True. It's almost like it delivers on the promise that comic books never keep. Like, that's the thing about comic books is it's never what's on the cover. They actually give you what's on the cover.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get right into what the show really is, the meat of the show. For those of you who haven't seen the show before, what we have is a playlist that we use as sort of our guide in through a conversation about the band at hand. So Parker has brought a playlist full of his favorite Iron Maiden jams. So we're going to go right into it. Jesse Jones at the Stab Comedy Theater, play our first song, please.
Yeah, So that was Wrathchild off their second album, Killers. I believe in like, if I had to guess, probably like 79 or something. I think their first album.
I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, their first album was like 77, self-titled. By the way, something that there's definitely a trend in the songs I picked. Most of them are with Paul Di'Anno, the original singer, because I have a very controversial opinion about Iron Maiden, which is that Bruce Dickinson kind of fucking sucks compared to Paul Di'Anno, at least.
Wow.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
100%.
This is... I feel like we got to stop the show for a second and really just... like, cool song that we just heard. Let's get that out of the way. Yeah, very cool song. Love the bass. Steve Harris is a god. Let's talk about this. What about Bruce Dickinson doesn't do it for you? Because he has the operatic voice of an angel.
I mean, yeah, it's nice, but it's also very corny and...
That's the word you choose to describe? Nice! You know what's nice?
Fun,
my grandma. My grandma's a very nice lady. Go on,
It's just super one-noted. I think Bruce Dickinson kind of takes a lot of the edge out of the band, honestly, and really brings like a weird, corny vibe to it, which I think is perfect for like some songs.
It's a little more like... It's kind of like with, you have that fine line with the Misfits as well, where it's like that kind of like horror punk thing where it's like, how seriously should we be taking them? Yeah. And I think that I think that Iron Maiden's better at riding the line, but not the Lightning. That's a different band. I think that they're generally better at it than a lot of other bands that try to balance that.
I think by the time Bruce got into the mix, like, it just seemed like melodrama was where they were headed already. Like, it just seems like that's, I don't know, like, that's such a draw to me about Maiden is the heightened reality. Like, I will completely agree. Definitely some edge was lost, because I was going to say an interesting thing about that I find about both of your entry points into Iron Maiden was how you guys like kind of came from punk first. So it makes perfect sense, Parker, that you would be more akin to the early stuff, because I mean those first two albums are like, there's, I don't know, I always felt a certain amount of like thrash type vibes with it. Like it felt like thrash punk. Yeah. Like it was sort of like let's fuck things up kind of metal. Like whereas, you know, the Iron Maiden that most people know is, you know, Run to the Hills and like just this big epic sound. Whereas like those early albums I think more as like dingy clubs. I don't think of arenas. Exactly. Put it that way. I don't think of arenas. I think of the clubs that they were playing at the time. Right. Which is definitely a more, you know, pure, you know, this is real rock, man. So I get that.
Yeah. Well, the thing too, though, is that like a lot of people will be like, "Well, Bruce Dickinson made the band," which actually they were like, they were skyrocketing already. They would have been pretty much just as famous. Like, you know, like Paul Di'Anno did all the legwork, and then he had like a meth problem. So, you know, like, but yeah, like quite honestly, I feel like he was just the perfect fit for it. Vocally, you know, I mean, Bruce Dickinson's like great, of course, but I just think that he made the band way more one-noted. You know what I mean?
I don't agree, but I understand. Does that make sense? Like, I get where you're coming from. Like, I could see how one could come to that conclusion for sure. Well, let's hear another song.
Yeah. So.
Go on.
Yeah.
It's all you.
That's Lost Somewhere, or fuck, am I saying it wrong? Lost Somewhere in Time?
I think it's Caught Somewhere in Time.
I'm an idiot. I'm like, no, it starts with the C, but I almost said Caught Somewhere in Time. I'm like, that's
a stupid title. Why would they call it
that? Yeah. Yeah, so that's really, I've not heard that album too much, but I like it. I believe that album also has Wasted Years on it, which I think is a good, like, nostalgia type song. You know, it's very, but again, I mean, it just all feels very, it's corny in like just like the line where he just goes like, I close my eyes, and you're just like, yeah, like you just,
yeah, I get that for sure.
Yeah.
Do you guys know, like, when abouts this would have come out? Like, where in the career was this?
That's their like sixth album, I think.
Yeah, it just, I'm really struck. I mean, really, this as well as the first one. It's been so long since I really listened to Iron Maiden that, like, I'm struck by how well it's produced. Like, the quality of this band, like, seriously, like, phenomenal production quality that you don't have with a lot of metal bands, like, through the 80s especially. It was, I don't know, it's such a time of, like, using all the tricks that they had and yet coming out with just shitty products. I don't know. A lot of metal from that time I just can't get into. But this sounds amazing.
The really clean production, especially on that intro, I think. Mm-hmm. I think that. What am I trying to say? You ever play Mega Man, the original Mega Man games?
Yeah.
Like on the original Nintendo. Mm-hmm. Those games had really like killer soundtracks, mm-hmm. and the guy who composed the music, and I don't think it was the same guys who did Castlevania, but anyway. The guy who made the music for the Mega Man games, which is some of the most like complex, like best, like chiptune style music, was directly taking the style of like Iron Maiden songs, and they have that same sort of like galloping rhythm to them.
Mm-hmm.
So if you play like the first 5 Mega Man games were on NES, they have soundtracks that sound like chiptune versions of Iron Maiden songs. It's really cool.
I never really connected that, but that makes perfect sense. I'm hearing it now in my head that, like, yeah, especially with the gallop, that bass run of, I mean, God. And let's talk about that for a second. If anyone's ever seen Iron Maiden live, that bassist's fingers are from another world. I mean, this man, Steve Harris, does not use picks. He uses these two fingers, and he uses the fuck out of them. Like, because he's got these enormous,
the English longbowman.
Yeah, just these fat ass strings, and he's just banging away on it. It's like, that was one of the first things I noticed about the band as a kid. Was like, that doesn't make sense. Like, that's insane, man. But yeah, this is a great song. The other thing that struck me about this song was how groovy it is. Like, it's such a groove-based song. Like, it's not just, a face-melting solo type different thing. It really starts with the foundation of a groove. And I love that in metal, like when you get that, because it can be such a strong foundation for all the heavy stuff you want to throw on top of it. So yeah, they're the masters of it for sure. Let's hear another.
Yeah.
Stand backstage.
Talk to us, Parker.
Yeah. So, what I especially love about Iron Maiden is Steve Harris, I believe, is the bassist name. He wrote he wrote pretty much all the songs. Dave Marie, the lead guitarist, wrote one, which was Charlotte the Harlot, and it's an okay song. But other than that, Steve Harris mostly writes everything, the music, all of it. So what I love about it is every single album, you can hear the bass so well, compared to it's not in the back at all.
It's a priority.
It's the opposite of Metallica.
It's like, I wrote this shit. Exactly. I want to hear myself play.
Totally. Yeah, and it serves the music so well because honestly, that's the first thing I think of when I think of this band is the bass, and it's not even just the galloping; it's just the power of it. It doesn't matter what he's doing, like what style he's playing. It's just how prominent it is in the mix. Yeah, it's so important to their sound. This is a cool song. One of the things it immediately reminded me of, which I've never made this connection before until just now listening to it. Have either of you guys heard I'd say the last two Interpol albums, especially the one before the one that came out, El Pintor?
Yeah,
I have not. I've only listened to Antics, and that was in seventh grade.
I have, but but I haven't heard I've heard El Pintor more than the most recent one.
Yeah, Rover. It's also really good, by the way. But El Pintor makes that's really the one that comes to mind with this, because that's when the band started incorporating a lot of these hammer-on riffs in their main structures in the songs. So the riff in this totally reminds me of any song that would be on El Pintor, but just sped up ridiculously. If they were to slow this down, it would be an Interpol song off of that album in particular.
That's a really great point. Holy shit.
If it had that Daniel Kessler weird timing, because he wouldn't just do it straight through like that. He'd probably do the hammer on and wait 2 beats and then do the rest of it. Well, the song My Desire or something like that. That's a really good example. Yeah, My Desire. Yeah. Let's hear another. So this song, "Hallowed Be Thy Name," off Number of the Beast, which is that's probably one of their most famous albums. I'd argue. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's usually the point of entry, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's incredible. Bruce Dickinson is perfect on the song. I don't want to act like I hate Bruce. I just
You can't put that toothpaste back in the tube. You said it.
I prefer Paul Di'Anno.
I get it.
But this song is just, and I think that Number of the Beast, that song really, or not just that song, that album, this is when they started having well, actually, I don't know, because Phantom of the Opera was more, it's almost it's more than just like a song. It's like a mini symphony to where
I know what you
so
mean.
many different parts. Yeah,
it's orchestral in that way. It has movements, really. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is when they really started to incorporate that and just have songs where if you like listen in at 1:57 and then listen in again at like 3:45, you're gonna be like, oh, is this the same song? Because there's so many weird transitions.
Yeah. And that's definitely, their theater sort of influence coming in, or not even influence, but like what they were trying to go for, like at this point. Like they're definitely like, they're carving their own path away from just sort of like a glam metal sort of thing, which is just big hair talking about, just sleeping with women. Like that's like, I divide metal that way. Like there is that metal, which is like, butt rock sort of, I don't know, just douchebag, male-driven ego metal. And then there's
it's that Uncle Rock thing.
Yeah.
It's in that Uncle Rock.
Yeah. But then there's Maiden, and like they're telling stories. Like none of those other bands were telling stories. But with this, like we have a character immediately introduced.
Yeah, I think that Sabbath is a good point of they're like an interesting point of comparison because they also had a changeover in lead singers and are pretty different bands as a result.
Definitely.
And there is kind of a similar shift from the kind of grittiness and bleakness of the Ozzy years of Sabbath to the more like fun and operatic and very demon heavy Dio years. But one band's playing like slowed down blues and the other one is shredding away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
just different strengths, I suppose, is what it comes down to, is like finding how do we function as a band now, because we don't want to go back to our day jobs. Like we got to figure out like how do we stay rich and famous. And they're gonna like, because it's not to say everyone in the band, like let's take Maiden for example, like maybe some of them, I mean, and obviously they're an example of like a revolving door of lineup changes. But who's to say everyone was totally on board with songs about, demons and pilgrims running from Indians, just all these strange stories, but they're going to go with it because it's working. Like when it comes down to it, it is just a job. Let's hear another song.
Yeah, so that was Remember Tomorrow off their first album. And yeah, just songs like that are incredible. And I think that that's something that Iron Maiden kind of lost with when they got Bruce Dickinson. Mm-hmm. Like, I honestly can't imagine them making that song. Like if they said, like, hey, how about we do some really nice soft arpeggios with a clean tone? They'd be like, are you out of your fucking mind? Like,
we're Iron Maiden.
Yeah, like, so, but yeah, that's probably my favorite Iron Maiden song. Like one of them,
it's a
for sure.
Beautiful song.
It almost has like a post-punk or like death rock feel to it. Like you could almost see that being like a Nick Cave or
Mm-hmm.
You know, like Early Death in June or Joy Division type song.
Because I was surprised when it got heavy. I didn't think I wasn't that familiar with this song, so like if it would have just stayed at that beginning level the entire time, you're absolutely right. This is like 80s post-punk for sure. And not to be a broken record about this, but could you guys imagine how boring that song would be without the bass? Like the bass at the level it is, like it carries it with that bounce.
Because like those guitar parts, as cool as they are, they're very like rudimentary at that point.
Yeah.
Like that sounds like a sixth grader riffing in his garage and like looping it.
It sounds like he's just doing top, bottom, middle, like picking pattern. You know.
But you add that bass in it, it makes it sound so much like weirder and more like
it's weird,
murky
it's
and
different.
mysterious.
Definitely. And then you just got like perfect vocals over the top of it, like exactly the vocalization like type that you would need for that song. You don't need to just jump right into that with like an over the top, you know, crescendo. Like he's just like seeping in there, you know. Very cavey. Yeah.
I feel like Bruce Dickinson's kind of like a really fast car where it's like you can't just ease into it. It's just like if you put your fucking toe on the gas pedal, you're going 60 like right away.
Definitely. Buckle up.
66 miles per hour.
Oh, also one thing to note about this is that there's a cover of it by Uncle Acid and the Deadbeats.
Oh yeah,
and they just fucking crush it. It's such a great cover.
What sort of band are they? I've never heard.
Sabbath and the Beatles combined is probably the best way I would describe it.
Huh.
Picture like Strawberry Fields with heavy Black Sabbath guitar.
Oh, that sounds very intriguing.
It's good stuff.
Well, it's Uncle what again?
Uncle Acid and the Deadbeats.
Okay,
Uncle
gotcha.
Acid, yeah.
Uncle Acid, gotcha. I'll have to check that out. Let's hear another.
Yeah, so that's like just like that song, like it's just in like listening to all these again, like I didn't realize how kind of experimental they were in a lot of ways, just with like that little harmonics riff they did. Like they're just like they definitely wanted a certain sound. They weren't afraid to like experiment with different stuff too. You know?
The drums were also interesting on that.
Yeah, we just had our disco episode last week, and the thing that is coming through on just hearing the intros to a lot of these songs is that a lot of them, if you just like slowed down the tempo a tiny bit, but still left a lot of room for cocaine, so still very fast tempo, like you could translate them into like a disco hit with the way the bass lines are written and the way the drums are. Those aren't that far removed from like the Bee Gees almost, but I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean that it's in like a very precise rhythmic way that is similar to like the dance music of the same period.
Yeah, you nailed it with precision. Like that's what it is. I think that's what we're responding to is like everything in its proper place. Like nothing about this feels like a band jamming, you know? Like, it
Yeah,
doesn't
totally.
feel like a loose rock band. They're just out there having fun on stage. No, everything is where it needs to be. So if you were to, like, you know, alter something slightly, yeah, you got club beats, basically.
And that very precise also translates to what I was saying about like chiptune music as well. That's why it translates so well, is because if you're like programming it into some sort of synthesizer or however people make 8-bit music, you're going to have to program it in those precise, like, binary ways that Iron Maiden songs have in them inherently. It's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's hear another.
Woe to you, O earth and sea.
Of course.
For the devil sends the beast with wrath, because he knows the time is short. Let him who hath understanding reckon the number of the beast, for it is a human number. Its number is 666.
I left alone, my mind was blank. I needed time to think, to get the memories from my mind. What did I see? Can I believe that what I saw that night was real and not just fantasy? Just what I saw in my old dreams were the reflections of my Walkman staring back at me. 'Cause in my dreams, it's always there, the evil face that twists my mind and brings me to despair.
Big shock. You chose that one.
Yeah.
Who would have guessed it?
Yeah, Number the Beast. I had the I actually have a poster somewhere in my closet from it. Definitely a staple of Iron Maiden. And what really is respectable too is just like there's a lot of like dad rock bands, you know, that kind of were like they wanted all the credit of we're so badass because they mentioned the occult, but they also like wanted enough room to be like, oh no, we don't like condone the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then Iron Maiden's just like, yeah, 666, that's the number of the beast.
Exactly.
You know?
Please burn our records.
It was written about a nightmare that I think Bruce Dickinson had after he watched The Omen for the first time.
Oh yeah.
So it's so funny that parents were like burning these records and stuff. Yeah, when the song is about like a nightmare that the singer had about a horror movie. Yeah. Like it's just such a like misplaced sense of outrage. The idea that like Iron Maiden was making kids like kill their friends or themselves or worship the devil.
Like that's absurd, but at the same time, like not that I'm defending like some outrage about Iron Maiden, but I also I can't help but see like it's a song about having a nightmare, and so like everything that's happening is a bad thing, obviously, but at the same time they definitely think it's cool.
Right.
Like, like that's my favorite thing about like any sort of metal stuff that involves the occult or Satan. It's not that they even adhere to like that set of beliefs. They just think it's fucking awesome. Like it's just,
it's very
it's
pure.
So simple. It's so pure.
It's very
and
pure, like self-expression.
Yes, I love it.
If you get into like LaVeyan Satanism, it's all about like self-expression and expression of your personal will, and it crosses over into libertarianism a lot, which we don't need to get into that. But as far as heavy metal lyrical content and not a way of living your life, absolutely. Like,
I think all metal should be hedonist.
Fun as possible.
It should be. That's a great one. I always like so many kids, like when they hear that song, clearly just drawn to the intro because it's the perfect rock intro, especially when he pauses and says it's number. Like, it's so perfect because it's like he's sneaking it up on you. Mm-hmm. You know what it's gonna be, but he's gonna tell you. I love it. He's so great.
So cool.
So we have time now for about one more song and a chat after that. Is there anything we didn't get to, Parker, that you would like Jesse to play?
I'd say for the last song, I'm thinking Prowler, probably.
Okay, cool. Okay. So as he's setting up Prowler, let's talk a hot second about your local claim to fame. You are on a podcast with another friend of Stab, Drew Absher. Tell us a bit about your show.
Yeah, thanks. So it's just we make fun of film clips, we review them, and we just riff on them. It's a fun time. Court was just on, and check us out. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram at FillMyHeartPod, and listen to wherever you get podcasts.
Yes, Phil with a PH. Unlike the man who does not have a PhD, I'm assuming. Parker, you're the expert. Does he have a PhD?
We got into it.
Does he?
Yeah, he does, but he's not allowed to practice.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, because that's a stage name now.
Yeah, he did get a PhD, but the problem is that he totally just he didn't.
He let his license lapse. Yeah. I didn't know he ever had a PhD. I thought like he maybe got to a certain point along the way or something. Well, at least he got a little something. All right, let's hear the last song of the night, and then we'll talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, this song, Prowler, the lyrics are about, like, I don't know if peeping Tom's the right word, but yeah, it's just a really weird song lyrically.
Yeah. I wasn't even really paying attention to the words. I was mostly struck by, like, this is exactly what I was talking about, like, more of a thrashy punk sound of their early sound. What were you going to say, Court?
Which album is this on?
Do you know what album?
It's on the first one, Iron Maiden.
I wonder if that had happened before or after the Richard Ramirez Night Stalker murders. Because I know that he was really into heavy metal, Richard Ramirez, the serial killer.
Really?
And I wonder if the song was influenced by him or vice versa.
Yeah, it's very possible. But you know, what's interesting too is that you say like, oh yeah, it's like a punky type sound almost, but they actually they got so pissed whenever anyone compared them to punk because they're trying to start their own like new subgenre of metal. So like
a new wave
if any publication said oh, so this punk, they'd be like, no, like they would just trash punk music.
I also totally get that because
they're like, we know how to play our fucking instruments.
Exactly. That's what I was gonna say. Like, could you imagine being these guys and being compared to 3 chords and a fuck you kind of just
Because I don't think these guys would have like known about like Black Flag yet, or been into like Wire or any of the bands that were doing interesting stuff like instrumentally with punk.
And the Clash wasn't really even doing interesting stuff at this point. Like interesting to the point that like metal people would be into them. I doubt.
At this point they were doing like Sandinista, right?
Before,
or that was a little later.
Yeah, this was before that. Like if this came out around 77 or so, this was like when the Clash was still
80,
really punk.
Yeah,
oh, gotcha.
1980 was the first album.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Well, yeah, that's I think that's our show, unless there was any final thoughts about this groovy song. Anything else? Right on. Well, folks, that's our show. You've been watching 6 o'clock Dad Rock Talk. Join us every Thursday at 6 o'clock where we talk about a different dad rock. Who knows what it'll be next week? We don't know yet. We'll figure it out. Please follow us on Instagram at Dad Rock Talk, or just Dad Rock. Is it? No, it's Dad Rock Talk. It is at Dad Rock Talk.
This happened on Fill My Heart today, too.
Oh, did it? Yeah. That's great. So, yeah, follow us there. We like to post some fun goodies and stuff. We totally forgot to post about Jerry Garcia's birthday.
Oh, yeah. I had a Instagram story written up, and then I forgot to actually post it. So when I closed my phone, it closed out of it.
Yeah, it wasn't until I saw a Rolling Stones collector's edition all about Jerry Garcia. I was like, oh yeah, that was. Anyways, thank you all for watching. Thank you, Parker Newman, for being on the show. We really appreciate it.
Parker.
This was a lot of fun. Hope to have you back sometime. Have a wonderful night, you guys. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Thanks for hanging out. Listen to 6 o'clock Dad Rock Talk. Stick around, or you know what, go away and then come back, because that's why that's so low. I turned it all the way down. Because at 8 o'clock, the Stab Show will be coming up, and we're looking forward to that. So come check it out. I'm gonna go finish getting ready for that. See you guys in a little bit.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm gonna go to the mic now, but thank you guys for having me on.